Your perfectly good gaming PC just got an eviction notice. On October 14, 2025, Microsoft ended free support for Windows 10. No more security updates unless you pay. Millions of gamers got told to buy Windows 11, or if their PC was too old to qualify, buy a whole new machine. But there's a third door nobody put on the brochure, and it does not cost you a single dime.
Hi everyone, I'm Erica. That third door is Linux gaming, and the number that changed everything is this. Today, roughly 90% of the games on Steam are playable on Linux, a figure that was a punchline just a few years ago.
Today we go deep on why that 90% is suddenly real, because the thing making it real is a quiet collaboration between Valve and the three companies that make your graphics chips.
Michael here. The piece that does the heavy lifting is called Proton. Think of it as a real-time translator sitting between a Windows game and Linux, so the game never knows it left home.
And this is not theoretical or brand new, Michael. This exact technology has already been in tens of millions of hands. Show them.
Gladly, and you have almost certainly held one of these. This is where Proton has quietly been running flawlessly for years now. That is the Steam Deck. It is a handheld that runs Linux and Proton, and tens of millions of people play their Windows games on it without ever thinking about an operating system. The deck quietly proved the whole idea works.
And that is the key shift. The deck was the test lab. What Valve is doing now is taking everything it learned there and pushing it onto regular desktop computers, the kind sitting under your desk right now.
And I'm Caroline, the one who always asks what it costs you. Valve is now working with AMD, Intel, and Nvidia directly on the graphics drivers underneath all of it to take that deck magic to a normal desktop. But I am not going to let anyone oversell this. Some games still refuse to run, mostly the competitive ones with kernel-level anti-cheat. We will be honest about exactly where the wall is.
Before we go further, one question came up under every video on this topic, and it deserves an answer up front. Erica, you have been sitting on it.
I have. People keep asking the same thing. Is Linux gaming actually good now, or is this just hype because Windows 10 died? That is the real question, and the honest answer is the whole video.
Hold that question in your head, because we are going to answer it for real today. First, what Valve actually built with the three chip makers and why it quietly changes the whole math. Then whether your specific machine and your specific games make the cut.
Here is the part that actually makes the 90% possible. A driver is the software that lets your operating system talk to your graphics card. On Linux, who writes that driver changes everything.
Walk us through it slowly, because this is the part everyone hand waves past. What is actually happening between me pressing play and a frame showing up?
Good, let me run you through the whole chain, because once you see it, the story clicks into place. There are 4 layers, and each one hands off to the next. Start at the top. Your game sends instructions, Proton translates them. The driver turns that into orders for the chip, and the GPU draws the frame. Game, then Proton, then driver, then GPU.
And the driver layer is exactly where AMD and Intel made the smart bet years ago. Their Linux drivers are open source. Anyone, including Valve, can read them, fix them, and improve them.
Give me the kitchen table version of open source, because that phrase loses people fast.
Think of a recipe. A closed driver is a sealed restaurant meal. If it tastes wrong, you wait and hope the chef fixes it. An open driver is the recipe printed on the box so Valve can walk into the kitchen and fix the dish itself.
That analogy actually nails why my AMD machine never breaks after an update. Valve already fixed the dish before it reached my plate.
Because they are open, those drivers get bundled right inside SteamOS, Valve's Linux system. You update the system and the graphics support comes along automatically. Nothing to install, nothing to break.
Now here is where I follow the friction. Nvidia kept its drivers proprietary, locked up and closed. That has historically made Nvidia the rougher ride on Linux, while AMD just worked out of the box.
Intel deserves a mention here too, by the way. Its graphics drivers are open as well, and support for Intel handheld chips actually landed in a SteamOS beta in June of 2026. So 2 of the 3 vendors are already the easy case.
So what is Valve actually doing about the hard one, Nvidia? This is the real news. A Valve engineer named Pierre-Luc Griffet confirmed they have a growing team collaborating closely with Nvidia to fix exactly this. But here is the honest timeline, so nobody is misled. That Nvidia support is not expected before late 2026 at the earliest. If you own a GeForce card today, the first class experience is still being built.
Credit where it is due. I will push back when something is sold too hard, but a company opening its driver and a company hiring a whole team to close the gap, those are real moves, not a press release.
And the goal underneath all of it is the big one. Valve wants SteamOS to run on any PC, not just its own handhelds. The collaboration with all 3 chip makers is how you get there.
Picture Sam, a college student on a 4-year-old laptop with an AMD chip that cannot even run Windows 11. The day SteamOS supports general hardware, Sam installs it for free. The drivers are already inside, and that dead laptop becomes a gaming machine again. That is the whole pitch.
Real quick, because this next part matters to you. If any of this is helping, tap that like button, then hit subscribe and ring the bell so the next one finds you. Both are free and take about a second, but they tell the algorithm to show this to one more person who needs it.
Enough theory. Does this hold up on a real machine you could actually build today? The short answer is yes, and I want to show you the exact parts list. Take a build running a Ryzen 9 7900 processor and a Radeon RX 9070 XT graphics card. Modern, mid to high tier, nothing exotic. It runs SteamOS with no Windows on the drive at all.
Show us the actual card, Michael, because I think people picture some weird custom part. It is just a normal graphics card you would buy anywhere, right?
Exactly right, and here it is, the hero of the story. That is the Radeon RX 9070 XT. It launched in March of 2025, 16 gigabytes of memory, built on AMD's newest architecture. On a card like this, the AMD driver is already inside SteamOS. You boot the system, the card is recognized, and you are in a game in minutes. Plug and play, no driver download, no fight.
Picture Dana, a 32-year-old who plays maybe 2 hours after the kids are asleep and was dreading a $400 Windows 11 upgrade. She wipes the drive, installs SteamOS for free, and her library is just there. That is the real-world version of this.
And the performance gap is smaller than people fear. In 2026 benchmarks, AMD cards ran about 4.6% slower on Linux than on Windows at the same settings. For a free operating system, that is remarkable.
And you do not lose the modern tricks either. That card supports AMD's upscaling, called FSR, which renders the game at a lower resolution and intelligently fills in the rest. Linux gets it too, so the smoothness is right there.
Which is the part that surprises people most. The fancy features are not a Windows-only club anymore. They come along for the ride.
Here is the honest asterisk, and I have to say it myself. That rosy number is an AMD number. Nvidia cards average closer to 17.7% slower, though their driver from June 2024 fixed a lot of it. The hardware you own changes the answer.
I can see Caroline has a sharp question on this, and it is the one a smart buyer would ask before spending a cent. Caroline, you have been quiet. Put it to the panel.
Yes, and it is the only question that matters at checkout. If I am building this today, does my choice of AMD or Nvidia decide whether Linux gaming is smooth or a headache?
Right now, mostly yes. The published record is clear. AMD or Intel today is the path of least resistance on Linux. Nvidia works and is improving fast, but you may do a little more setup.
So the practical takeaway for a buyer is simple. If Linux is even on your mind, the GPU you pick is the one decision that matters most.
Precisely. If Linux gaming is the plan, buy AMD or Intel. You are paying for the plug-and-play experience instead of an afternoon of troubleshooting forum threads.
That is exactly why that real build feels like the promise delivered. AMD Silicon, an open driver baked in, no windows. The machine just plays games. That is what people have wanted for 15 years.
So here is the fork worth arguing out, because plenty of you are staring at it tonight. Windows 10 is done. Do you finally switch to Linux for gaming, or do you just move to Windows 11 and not think about it? There is no single right answer for everyone here, so I want both sides made fully. Michael leans switch, Caroline leans stay. Michael, you make the case for switching first.
The case is simple. 90% of your library already runs. The driver story is solved on AMD. You get a free operating system. You keep your old hardware out of a landfill, and nobody is nagging you to buy an upgrade.
All true, and still not the whole bill. Switching has a cost people forget. There is a learning curve, your muscle memory is gone, and if one game you love uses kernel-level anti-cheat, it simply will not launch.
I will grant the learning curve is real, but I think you are overstating it for the average person. If you can use a phone, you can use SteamOS. It boots straight into a familiar Steam library, and most people never touch a setting.
For the average single-player gamer, fair. But the moment something goes wrong, you are searching forums in a system you do not know yet. That stress is a real cost, even if it fades. I am not inventing it to win a point.
Hold on, that anti-cheat point is the real landmine. Caroline, how big a deal is it actually?
Big if you play the wrong games. Easy anti-cheat and BattleEye can run on Linux, but the developer has to flip the switch, and many big competitive titles refuse. Apex Legends pulled Linux support and said it cut cheaters by about a third.
I will concede that one fully. If your main game is a lockdown competitive shooter, Linux may break your heart, and no amount of my enthusiasm fixes it. That is the honest edge of the map. But for everyone else, the single-player crowd, the strategy and indie crowd, the catalog players, the wall just is not there anymore. They are the ones leaving money on the table by buying Windows 11 out of pure habit.
And there's even a no-build option now, right? Valve's own Steam machine is coming, so you do not have to be a tinkerer to get this.
Right. The new Steam machine ships in 2026 running SteamOS on AMD hardware, starting around $1,049, and Valve claims over 6 times the power of the Steam Deck. You unbox it and you are gaming on Linux instantly.
And I will Steelman staying on Windows for the people it fits. If you are not technical, if you depend on one anti-cheat game, or if your livelihood runs on a Windows-only app, staying is not laziness. It is the right call for you.
Then let me settle it with a record rather than enthusiasm. Both of you are correct, and the verdict is a sorting question, not a winner. If you play mostly single-player, indie, or older titles, switching to Linux is now the genuinely better deal. If a kernel-level anti-cheat game is your life, check Proton DB first or stay on Windows. Match the choice to your library, not the hype.
I can live with that verdict, and it is more honest than I was being. The Switch is not for everyone. It is for the majority whose games already run, and that majority just got a lot bigger.
And I will give Michael this. A year ago, I would have said wait. Today, with the driver work and the 90% number, I would tell most people to at least test it. That is a real change of position for me.
So that is where the panel lands. Not a winner-take-all, but a sorting question with a clear verdict. Check your library, weigh your one deal-breaker game, and the answer falls out on its own. Let us make it concrete next. Let us land this where it counts. Who is Linux gaming actually for right now, and how do you test the water without burning your bridges? I want a straight answer from someone who lives in this. So we called in someone who knows the Linux gaming stack cold to settle the practical questions. Let me get them on the line.
Happy to be here. The rule I give everyone is the same. Before you change anything, take your 10 most played games and look them up on Proton DB. It tells you in seconds whether each one runs great, runs with a tweak, or does not run.
So you are saying do not switch on faith, switch on evidence. Check your actual library first, not someone else's highlight reel.
Right, and the ratings make it easy to read. The community grades each game platinum, gold, silver, on down. Platinum means it just runs, gold means a tiny tweak. If your favorites are gold or better, you are good to go.
And that grading is real community data, not a marketing claim. Thousands of players test each game and report back, so the rating reflects what actually happens on real machines.
Exactly, and the numbers are on your side now. About 90% of Steam titles land at a playable rating, with tens of thousands flagged as working great. The catalog crossed that line in just the last couple of years.
So the candidate test is simple then.
It is. If your top games come back green, you are the perfect candidate. Single-player, strategy, indie, and older titles are basically a solved problem now. That is where the experience genuinely beats the fear.
And for someone who does not want to build a machine at all, there is now an off-the-shelf path. Valve's Steam Machine, coming in 2026, ships with SteamOS already on it and runs on AMD hardware. Plug it in, done.
Exactly, and that lowers the bar to 0, but I will say the quiet part out loud. If even one of your must-play games is a competitive shooter with kernel-level anti-cheat, none of this saves you. That game will not launch, full stop.
Which is the fair warning. The big competitive titles are exactly the ones most likely to block you, and there is no workaround you can buy your way out of.
Hold on. Let me kill the scariest myth right now. People think switching means wiping Windows forever in one terrifying night. They picture deleting everything and praying. Mar set them straight on that.
That fear is the biggest myth, and it is wrong. You do not have to wipe anything. Put Linux on a spare drive, dual boot it, and keep Windows as a safety net while you test for a few weeks. There is no bridge to burn.
And practically, that is one cheap extra drive. You install Linux onto it, and at every startup, your computer asks which system you want. Pick Linux to test, pick Windows when you need it. Your old setup is untouched the whole time.
That is the answer I can actually endorse. Try it free, keep your exits open, and only commit once your own games prove themselves. No marketing, just a test you control.
Thank you for the straight talk, Mar. So here's the one idea to carry out of this. Linux gaming stopped being a question of whether it works. The only question left is whether your games are on the list, and now you know how to check. So here is the whole story in one breath. Windows 10 ended, and at the same moment, Valve's work with AMD, Intel, and Nvidia quietly made about 90% of Steam games playable on Linux for free. The Steam Deck proved it, and the desktop is next.
And your move tonight is small and free. Open Proton DB, type in your 5 favorite games, and in 2 minutes you will know whether you can leave Windows behind for good. You do not spend a cent to find out.
Coming up next, the one number we could not stop arguing about. We tear apart the new Steam machine and chase down whether the over 6 times performance claim is real. Wait until you see what that price actually buys you.
If this saved you from buying a new PC you did not need, do me one favor. Hit like and subscribe, because we make one of these for the stuff the brochures leave out every single week.
And the one we could not settle for you today is the personal one. Here it is. What is the one game keeping you on Windows, and is it really worth staying for? Tell us in the comments.
Every good teacher was once a confused student. Keep going.
9. Cynthia. You had the pacing I usually strive for. I am taking notes for my next one. This is Professor Erica. Thanks for watching and signing off.